Now let's begin. Willie Livingston arrived at Meridian Technologies at 6:47 a.m., same as he had for the past 22 years. The building's glass facade reflected the orange morning sky, and he nodded to the security guard, Claude Larson, who'd been there almost as long as Willie had. The man raised his coffee cup in salute. "Early bird again, Willie. You know me, Claude. Systems don't sleep." Willie's badge beeped at the turnstile, granting him access to the building he'd helped wire from the ground up. Back in 2003, he'd been part of the original IT team of 4 people working out of a converted storage room. Now Meridian employed over 800 people across 3 floors, and Willie had built every network, every server cluster, every security protocol from scratch. He'd hired and trained 32 IT professionals over the years. Many had moved on to bigger companies, better salaries, but they still called him for advice. The elevator hummed as it carried him to the 3rd floor. Willie checked his reflection in the polished doors, salt and pepper hair, reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck, the same flannel shirt style he'd worn for decades. At 56, he knew he didn't look like the 20-something tech bros that populated the startup scene. He looked like what he was, a man who'd spent 2 decades keeping systems running while everyone else slept. His office sat adjacent to the server room, separated by reinforced glass. The gentle whir of cooling fans was his meditation, the blinking lights of active connections his constellation. Willie set down his thermos and powered up his workstation. 3 monitors flickered to life, displaying real-time system analytics, security feeds, and backup processes. Everything running smooth. As always, the department had changed significantly in recent months. 6 of his most experienced team members had been let go in what HR called restructuring. Willie had fought those decisions, but the new chief operating officer, Tamara Ward, had overruled him. She joined Meridian 18 months ago from a consulting firm, bringing with her a vocabulary full of synergy and disruptive innovation that made Willie's teeth ache. His phone buzzed. A meeting request from Tamara for 9 a.m. Unusual. She typically avoided him, preferring to communicate through her assistant. Willie spent the next 2 hours running diagnostics and reviewing security logs. At 8:47, he noticed something odd: attempts to access the legacy financial systems from an unfamiliar IP address. He flagged it, traced the source to an external contractor Tamara had hired, and documented the security breach in his incident report. The contractor had been trying to migrate data without proper authorization protocols. At 8:55, he walked to the executive floor. Tamara's corner office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her assistant, a nervous young woman named Chelsea Arroyo, gestured him inside. Tamara sat behind her glass desk, perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer suit, and a smile that never reached her eyes. Beside her sat Greg Mullen from HR, a manila folder in his hands. Willie's instincts sharpened. Greg only brought folders for one reason. "Willie, sit down," Tamara said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "How are you?" "Fine. What's this about?" She folded her manicured hands. "I want to start by thanking you for your 22 years of dedicated service to Meridian. You've been instrumental in building our IT infrastructure." Past tense. Willie's jaw tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. "However," Tamara continued, "the technology landscape has evolved dramatically. We need teams that can communicate in modern ways, collaborate using contemporary frameworks. Frankly, Willie, we need fresh energy. Younger teams just communicate better. They're more agile, more adaptable." Willie stared at her. "I've adapted to every technological shift for 2 decades. Cloud migration, cybersecurity overhauls, AI integration. It's not just about technical skills." Tamara's smile widened. "It's about culture fit. The younger generation brings a different mindset, a collaborative spirit that, frankly, someone from your generation might struggle to embrace." "My generation," Willie repeated slowly. Greg Mullen cleared his throat, sliding the folder across. "Your severance package is quite generous. 6 months salary, extended healthcare coverage, and a positive reference letter." Willie opened the folder. The termination letter was dated today, effective immediately. 2 decades of institutional knowledge, gone with a signature. He read through the severance terms, standard boilerplate, nothing exceptional despite Tamara's description. "This is age discrimination," Willie said quietly. Tamara's smile never faltered. "This is a business decision based on strategic realignment. You're welcome to have a lawyer review the severance agreement. You have 30 days to sign." Willie looked at the woman who'd been with the company barely a fraction of his tenure. She didn't understand the systems she was inheriting. She didn't know that the legacy infrastructure she dismissed was the backbone supporting every modern service Meridian offered. She'd hired external contractors who didn't know the difference between a secure API and an open backdoor. But explaining that to her would be pointless. She'd already made her decision. "I see," Willie said. He stood, folder in hand. "I'll need to document the transition protocols for whoever's taking over." "That won't be necessary," Tamara said. "We've hired Isaac McGee as interim head of IT. He comes from a startup background, very cutting edge. He'll be implementing his own systems." Isaac McGee. Willie knew the name. 32 years old, Stanford graduate, 3 failed startups, and a reputation for flashy presentations that masked shallow technical understanding. "I'll need my access credentials until end of day to properly secure my accounts," Willie said. Greg Mullen shook his head. "Security protocol requires immediate credential termination. Your access was revoked at 9 a.m. Of course it was. Tamara had planned this carefully. Terminate him during off-hours planning. Revoke access during the meeting. Minimize his ability to cause problems. Except she didn't understand what she'd just done. Willie had built every system in this building. He'd installed the original servers, coded the authentication protocols, designed the backup architectures. Every security measure, every failsafe, every redundancy had his fingerprints on it. Not because he'd planned some elaborate trap, but because he'd been the only one who understood the systems deeply enough to maintain them. And now she'd cut him loose without transition, without documentation, without any knowledge transfer. "Fine," Willie said. He extended his hand. "Thank you for the opportunity, Tamara. I hope Isaac works out for you." She shook his hand, her grip weak and brief. "I'm sure he will. This is nothing personal, Willie. It's just business." Willie smiled for the first time that morning. "Of course it is." He walked to his office, where Chelsea had already placed a cardboard box on his desk. 22 years reduced to a single box. Willie packed his personal items, a photo of his late wife, Sarah, his collection of vintage tech manuals, the coffee mug his team had given him on his 20th anniversary. He left the company laptop, the security badge, the key fob for the server room. He didn't log into any systems, didn't access any files. Everything was already locked down anyway. Claude Larson looked surprised when Willie walked out at 9:47 a.m., box in hand. "Everything okay?" the security guard asked. "Retired," Willie said. "Effective immediately." Claude's eyes widened. "Jesus, Willie. After everything you..." "It's fine, Claude. Really." Willie shifted the box. "Take care of yourself." He walked to his truck, a 15-year-old Ford F-150 that ran perfectly because he maintained it himself. The box went on the passenger seat. Willie sat behind the wheel and didn't start the engine for a full minute. Sarah had died 3 years ago. Cancer, fast and brutal. She'd been his anchor, his reason for staying at Meridian even when Silicon Valley companies offered twice his salary. She'd loved their small house, their quiet neighborhood, their simple life. Willie had turned down every offer because it would mean uprooting her. After she passed, he'd thrown himself into work even harder. The systems became his family. Training the younger staff became his purpose. He'd mentored Isaac McGee's predecessor, a sharp woman named Kelly Singh who'd left for Google 6 months ago. She'd begged Willie to come with her. He'd stayed loyal to Meridian. And Tamara Ward had thanked him by tossing him out like outdated hardware. Willie started the truck and drove home. His house felt too quiet, too empty. He set the box on the kitchen table and made coffee. Then he sat and thought about what came next. Retirement? At 56? With nothing but severance money and an empty house? His phone buzzed. A text from Kelly Singh. Just heard. "I'm so sorry, Willie. Wanted to put you in touch with recruiters?" He ignored it for now. Another text, this one from Mohammed Driscoll, one of his former team members. This is bullshit. Tamara doesn't know what she's done. Willie smiled grimly. No, she really didn't. By Sunday evening, Willie had thought through everything. He'd built those systems to be robust, redundant, and secure. But robust systems required constant maintenance. Redundancies needed monitoring. Security protocols needed updates. All things Isaac McGee wouldn't know how to do. All things Tamara Ward had never bothered to understand. Willie wasn't going to sabotage anything. He wasn't going to hack into Meridian's systems or plant malware. He didn't need to. He'd simply built systems that required expertise to maintain. Systems that would fail without that expertise. Not immediately, that would be too obvious. But gradually, in cascading ways that would seem like independent problems. Unless you knew how everything connected. Unless you understood the architecture from the ground up. Willie poured himself a bourbon and sat on his back porch. The night air was cool, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt something other than grief. He felt patient. Monday morning would be very interesting. Isaac McGee arrived at Meridian Technologies at 8:30 a.m. Monday morning, carrying a messenger bag and wearing designer jeans with a blazer. He'd spent the weekend reviewing Willie Livingston's department structure, and frankly, he was appalled. The man had been running systems like it was still 2010. Physical servers when everything should be cloud-based. Manual security protocols when AI-driven solutions existed. A team structure that looked like a hierarchical corporation instead of an agile pod model. Isaac had already drafted his transformation proposal. Migrate everything to AWS within 3 months. Implement a DevOps culture. Replace the old guard with contractors who understood modern frameworks. Tamara Ward had given him carte blanche. Whatever you need, she'd said. Willie's way of doing things was holding us back. Isaac settled into Willie's old office. No, his office now. The 3 monitors were overkill. He preferred working on his MacBook. The server room access was unnecessary. Everything would be cloud-based soon enough. At 9:15 a.m., his phone rang. Chelsea Arroyo, sounding panicked. Isaac, the email server is down. Nobody can send or receive emails. What? Isaac pulled up his laptop. That's impossible. Email should be redundant across multiple. His screen showed error messages. He tried accessing the email administration panel, but his credentials didn't work. He tried the backup admin account Willie had supposedly documented. Access denied. Give me the IT team, Isaac said. 10 minutes later, he was in a conference room with the remaining IT staff. 5 people who'd all been hired in the past 18 months, none with more than 3 years at Meridian. Someone explain how the email server crashed. Isaac demanded. A young developer named Rudy Spence looked uncomfortable. The primary server went down, so the system should have failed over to the backup. But the failover protocol isn't working. Where's the documentation for the failover system? Silence. Willie kept most of the critical infrastructure documentation in his head, said another team member, Simon Newell. He was training us gradually, but that's completely unacceptable. Isaac snapped. What about the automated monitoring? Shouldn't we have gotten alerts before this crashed? More uncomfortable silence. Isaac realized with growing horror that Willie Livingston hadn't just been old-fashioned. He'd been a single point of failure for the entire infrastructure. And Tamara Ward had fired him without any knowledge transfer. Fine, Isaac said. We'll rebuild from scratch. Pull up the network architecture diagrams. Willie took those with him, Rudy said quietly. They were on his personal drive. Then we'll figure it out ourselves. How hard can it be to restart an email server? Very hard, as it turned out. By noon, the email system was still down. By 2 p.m., the customer relationship management system started throwing errors. By 4 p.m., 3 separate departments reported database connectivity issues. Isaac spent the entire day firefighting, each fix creating 2 new problems. The infrastructure Willie had built was interconnected in ways that made no sense, until you understood that each connection had a purpose, a failsafe, a reason. By 6 p.m., Isaac was on the phone with Tamara Ward. We need to bring Willie back as a consultant, he said. Just temporarily, to help with the transition. Absolutely not, Tamara snapped. That would undermine everything we're trying to accomplish. You're supposed to be an expert, Isaac. Fix it. She hung up. Isaac stared at his laptop, at the cascade of error messages, at the infrastructure he didn't understand. Willie Livingston's phone sat on his kitchen counter, buzzing with calls from Meridian Technologies. He'd received 14 calls since 10 a.m. He'd answered none of them. Instead, he was in his garage workshop, restoring a 1967 Mustang he'd bought at auction. Sarah had always wanted him to finish it. He'd never found the time. Now he had all the time in the world. His phone buzzed again. Tamara Ward, 15th call. Willie wiped the grease from his hands and answered. Willie. Tamara's voice was strained, the corporate polish cracking. Thank God. We need your help. The systems are having some issues. I don't work there anymore, Willie said calmly. I understand, but this is urgent. The email server, the CRM, multiple databases, everything's failing. We need you to come in and help Isaac stabilize things. Willie smiled, though she couldn't see it. That sounds serious. What does Isaac think is causing the problems? He's not sure. The systems are complicated and without proper documentation. Documentation I would have provided if you'd allowed a proper transition, Willie said. But you revoked my access during our termination meeting. Security protocol, remember? Silence on the other end. Willie, I'll pay you consultant rates. Double your old salary. Just come in and fix this. I'm retired, Tamara. You said I was outdated, that you needed fresh energy. I'm sure Isaac and his younger team will figure it out. They communicate better, right? Willie, I need to go. Good luck with your strategic realignment. He hung up. The phone buzzed again immediately. Willie powered it off and returned to the Mustang. Let them figure it out themselves. By Tuesday afternoon, Meridian Technologies was in full crisis mode. The email system had been down for over 24 hours. The customer database had corrupted files that Isaac couldn't recover. The financial systems were locked in read-only mode because of failed authentication protocols. Tamara Ward called an emergency executive meeting. The other executives, Chief Financial Officer Donald Oliver, Chief Sales Officer Felicia Good, and Chief Technology Officer Matt Doyle, sat around the conference table with varying degrees of anger. Explain to me, Donald Oliver said slowly, why we can't access financial records 3 days before our quarterly audit. Tamara looked at Isaac McGee, who looked like he hadn't slept. We're working on it. The systems Willie built were unconventional, without documentation. You fired the only person who understood the systems, Matt Doyle interrupted. Without transition, without backup, without any continuity plan. I made a strategic decision based on departmental needs, Tamara said defensively. You made a catastrophically stupid decision based on ageist assumptions, Felicia Good snapped. And now our entire operation is paralyzed. Donald Oliver leaned forward. Have we tried bringing Willie back? He refused, Tamara admitted. I offered him consultant rates. How much? Double his old salary. That's insulting, Matt Doyle said. You fire a man after 22 years and then offer him double pay to clean up your mess? Why would he help us? Tamara's face flushed. Then what do you suggest? Triple rates, full apology, and a guarantee that Isaac reports to him during the transition. Isaac is head of IT. Isaac is a glorified systems administrator who's in way over his head, Donald Oliver said. I don't care about titles or egos. I care about the fact that we have 48 hours before auditors arrive and we can't access our financial records. Tamara pulled out her phone and dialed Willie's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. He's not answering, she said. Then go to his house, Felicia Good said. In person. Grovel if you have to. Tamara Ward had never groveled in her life. But watching the quarterly projections crater in real time, watching her position at Meridian evaporate with every failed system, she realized she didn't have a choice. She drove to the address from Willie's personnel file, a modest house in a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes from the office. The driveway held an old Ford truck in a tarp-covered shape that suggested a project car. She rang the doorbell. No answer. She rang again, then knocked. The door opened to reveal Willie Livingston in jeans and a greasy t-shirt, holding a wrench. Ms. Ward, he said mildly. Surprised to see you outside the office. Willie, we need to talk. Can I come in? I don't think that's appropriate. I don't work for you anymore. Tamara forced a smile. That's what I want to discuss. We need your expertise during this transition period. I'm prepared to offer you a very generous consulting contract. How generous? 3 times your old salary, flexible hours, full benefits, and creative control over the IT transition. Willie leaned against the doorframe. That's a significant offer. Why the sudden change of heart? The systems are more complex than we anticipated. Isaac needs guidance. Isaac needs to be fired, Willie said. He's out of his depth, and you know it. He spent 2 days making things worse because he doesn't understand how anything actually works. Tamara's jaw tightened. I'm not firing Isaac. Then you don't need me. Willie started to close the door. Wait. Tamara put her hand against the door. What do you want? Name your terms. Willie studied her for a long moment. I want my job back. Full title, full authority. Isaac becomes my subordinate or leaves. And I want a written apology from you, acknowledging that my firing was based on age discrimination, not performance. That's legally impossible. The apology would expose Meridian to liability. Then I guess you'll have to figure out the systems yourself. Willie smiled. You said you needed fresh energy. I'm sure Isaac will crack the code eventually. Good luck with your audit, Ms. Ward. He closed the door in her face. Tamara stood on the porch, furious and helpless. She'd never been dismissed like that, never been outmaneuvered so completely. Her phone rang. Donald Oliver. The backup systems just failed, he said. We've lost access to client contracts. This is turning into a complete disaster. Where are we with Willie? He wants terms we can't meet, Tamara said. Then meet them anyway. I don't care what it takes. Get him back, or start packing your office. The call ended. Tamara stared at Willie's front door, at the quiet house that held the keys to her professional survival. She'd made a terrible miscalculation, and Willie Livingston knew it. Inside, Willie returned his garage and a Mustang. He'd been tracking Meridian's systems remotely, not through hacking, but through monitoring tools that were still technically his to access until the severance agreement was signed. He knew exactly what was failing and why. The email server had crashed because Isaac had tried to restart it without following the proper sequence. That triggered a cascade failure in the authentication system, which locked down the backup protocols. The CRM system failed because someone had tried to update the software without checking dependencies. That corrupted the integration with the financial database. The financial systems locked in read-only mode because of a security protocol Willie had implemented 5 years ago. If too many failed authentication attempts occurred in a 48-hour period, the system assumed a breach and went into lockdown. Only Willie knew the master override code. None of it was sabotage. All of it was just systems working exactly as designed, failing exactly as they would without proper expertise. Willie could fix everything in about 4 hours. But why should he? Tamara Ward had called him outdated. She dismissed 22 years of loyalty and expertise with a smile and corporate doublespeak. She terminated him without transition, without respect, without even basic courtesy. Now she wanted him to save her from the consequences of her own arrogance. Willie picked up his phone and sent a text to Kelly Singh. You still have recruiter contacts? I might be interested in hearing what's out there. Her response came immediately. Hell yes. Sending you 3 names right now. These companies would kill to have you. Willie smiled. Let Meridian burn. Let Tamara Ward explain to the board why she destroyed a functional IT department out of ageist stupidity. He had better things to do. By Wednesday morning, Meridian Technologies had made the local news. Tech company in crisis after IT collapse, ran the headline, complete with statements from frustrated clients unable to access their services. Tamara Ward was in full damage control mode, but the board of directors had called an emergency meeting for Thursday morning. Donald Oliver had made it clear, fix the systems or resign. She sat in her office at 7 a.m., exhausted and desperate, when her phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Ward? This is Kelly Singh. I used to work at Meridian. I remember, Tamara said warily. I heard about your systems crisis. I also heard you fired Willie Livingston and now can't fix the problems. If you're calling to gloat, I'm calling to offer advice, Kelly said. Willie was the best mentor I ever had. He taught me everything about those systems. But he's also one of the most principled people I know. You disrespected him. so he has no obligation to help you. I offered him 3 times his salary. You should have offered him respect from the beginning. You should have valued his expertise instead of dismissing it as outdated. Kelly paused. But here's what you need to understand. Willie built those systems to last. They're failing now because they require maintenance he provided. You can either bring him back with genuine respect and authority, or you can watch Meridian collapse. He wants terms I can't meet, Tamara said. Then meet them anyway. Swallow your pride. Admit you were wrong, and beg him to come back. Because without Willie, you're finished. The call ended. Tamara stared at her phone, then at the cascade of crisis reports flooding her inbox. Kelly Singh was right. This wasn't about pride anymore. It was about survival. She picked up her phone and called her lawyer. I need you to draft a very specific apology letter, she said. And I need it to be airtight from a legal perspective. Thursday morning, Willie received a certified letter. Inside was a formal apology from Tamara Ward, acknowledging that his termination had been ill-considered and not reflective of his exceptional performance. The letter stopped short of admitting legal liability, but came close enough. Attached was a contract, head of IT, restored full authority, salary increase of 40%, and a guarantee of employment until age 65 unless terminated for cause. Isaac McGee would be reassigned to a junior developer role. Willie read the contract twice, then called Matt Doyle, the CTO he'd worked with for 15 years. Matt, did you have anything to do with this contract? I wrote most of it, Matt admitted. The board gave Tamara until tomorrow to fix the crisis or she's out. This was her last card to play. But Willie, you should know, she didn't want to do this. She's being forced. I assumed as much, Willie said. So if I come back, I'm working with someone who resents me. Probably. But you'd also be saving 800 jobs. Our clients are abandoning ship. Without you, Meridian might not survive the quarter. Willie thought about his former colleagues, the people who'd sent concerned texts all week. Thought about Claude Larson, the security guard who'd probably lose his job if Meridian folded. Thought about the people who'd done nothing wrong except work for a company with a bad COO. I'll come in tomorrow, Willie said. But I have conditions beyond the contract. Name them. I want Tamara in the room when I fix the systems. I want her to watch and understand exactly what she dismissed as outdated. And I want complete autonomy over IT. She doesn't get input, doesn't get approval rights, doesn't get to question my decisions. Done, Matt said immediately. See you tomorrow at 7 a.m.? 6, Willie said. These systems won't fix themselves. Friday morning at 5:47 a.m., Willie Livingston walked into Meridian Technologies. Claude Larson nearly dropped his coffee. Willie, you're back. Temporarily, Willie said, accepting his new security badge. Let's see how it goes. His office looked exactly as he'd left it, except the personal items were gone. Willie didn't care. He powered up the 3 monitors, logged in with his restored credentials, and got to work. At 6:15, Tamara Ward arrived, looking haggard. She'd probably slept 4 hours all week. Willie, she said stiffly, thank you for coming back. Let's be clear, Willie said without looking away from his screens. I'm here for the people who depend on Meridian, not for you. You're going to sit in that chair and watch while I fix everything you broke. And you're not going to speak unless I ask you a direct question. Understood. Tamara's face flushed, but she nodded and sat. Willie started with the financial systems. He pulled up the security lockdown protocol and entered the master override code, a 64-character string he'd memorized years ago. The system prompted for secondary authentication, a pattern of keystrokes that had to be entered in exactly the right rhythm. Willie's fingers flew across the keyboard. The system unlocked. How did you do that? Tamara asked. I told you not to speak, Willie said calmly. He pulled up the authentication logs, identified where Isaac had triggered the cascade failure, and began methodically reversing each error. 30 minutes later, the financial systems were operational. Next came the CRM database. Willie explained as he worked, not for Tamara's benefit, but to document the process. The integration between CRM and financial systems requires synchronized timestamps. Isaac tried to update the CRM without understanding this dependency. Every transaction timestamp was off by 6 hours because of a time zone error. He corrected the time zone settings, restored the corrupted files from a backup he'd hidden in a partition Isaac hadn't known existed, and resynced the systems. By 8 a.m., the CRM was running. The email server took longer. Willie had to rebuild the failover protocols from scratch, explaining each step. These systems were designed to be redundant, but manual. Automation introduces vulnerabilities. I preferred manual oversight because it meant someone competent was always monitoring critical infrastructure. That's not scalable, Tamara said, then caught herself. Willie glanced at her. You're right. It's not scalable for a company planning rapid growth. But Meridian isn't scaling. We're stable at 800 employees and have been for 3 years. I designed systems for our actual needs, not for theoretical futures. That's called engineering, not being outdated. By 10 a.m., email was restored. Willie spent the next 2 hours running comprehensive diagnostics, checking every system, every connection, every failsafe. At noon, he leaned back in his chair. Everything's operational, he said. But we have bigger problems than system crashes. What problems? Tamara asked. Willie pulled up security logs. While Isaac was panicking about email, someone was trying to access our client database from an external IP. Repeatedly. These attempts started Tuesday afternoon. Who? One of the contractors you hired, Willie said. The same one I flagged last week for unauthorized access attempts. I assume you never read my incident report because you fired me the next day. He pulled up the report, showing Tamara's name in the recipient field. If I hadn't restored security protocols this morning, they would have breached the database by end of day. Our client information, including financial records, trade secrets, and proprietary contracts, would have been compromised. Tamara went pale. That would have been catastrophic. Willie finished. You would have faced regulatory penalties, client lawsuits, and complete loss of credibility. All because you hired contractors without vetting them and ignored security warnings from your head of IT. He stood up. I've secured the breach point and revoked that contractor's access. I'm also implementing new security protocols that don't rely on single individuals. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, Meridian will survive. Willie, Tamara said quietly. I was wrong. About everything. Yes, you were. Willie gathered his things. I'm going home. I'll be back Monday to start training Isaac properly, assuming he's willing to learn from someone he thinks is outdated. If not, fire him and hire someone teachable. He walked past her, then paused at the door. One more thing. Every person you fired from IT over the past year was let go because they were over 40. Every replacement you hired was under 30. That's a pattern. My lawyer has already documented it. If you continue this trajectory, Meridian will be facing a class action lawsuit. Tamara's eyes widened. Willie, I never meant. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. You created a hostile environment for experienced professionals because you valued youth over expertise. That's illegal, it's unethical, and it nearly destroyed this company. Willie met her eyes. I'm back because good people depend on Meridian. But you and I will never be on good terms. We'll work together professionally because we have to. That's all. He left her sitting in his office, surrounded by systems she still didn't understand. Monday morning, Willie arrived to find Isaac McGee waiting at his office. I owe you an apology, Isaac said. I was arrogant. I assumed your methods were outdated without understanding why you'd built systems that way. Apology accepted, Willie said. But here's the reality. You have impressive credentials and minimal practical experience. You know theory, I know application. If you're willing to learn, I'll teach you. If you're not, you should find another job. Isaac nodded. I want to learn. Good. First lesson. Scalability isn't always the goal. Reliability is. Meridian doesn't need cutting-edge cloud architecture. We need systems that work when we need them to work. Over the next 3 months, Willie rebuilt the IT department with a mix of experience and youth. He brought back 2 of the fired employees, Mohammed Driscoll and Simon Newell, and created a mentorship structure where senior staff trained junior developers. Isaac McGee surprised him. Once the kid checked his ego, he proved to be a fast learner with genuine talent. Willie gradually handed over more responsibilities, documenting everything creating the transition plan Tamara should have allowed from the beginning. Tamara Ward, meanwhile, had become notably subdued. The board had put her on probation following the crisis. Her authority was diminished, her decisions scrutinized. She learned, painfully, that dismissing expertise had consequences. In June, Willie received another offer from Kelly Singh's former company. A VP position, significant salary increase, relocation to California. He turned it down. Why? Kelly asked over the phone. Willie, you could write your own ticket anywhere. Because I'm comfortable here, Willie said. I've got good people to train, systems to maintain, and a Mustang to finish restoring. That's enough. 2 years later, Willie Livingston stood on the stage at Meridian Technologies' annual company meeting. Matt Doyle had just finished announcing his retirement, and the board had voted unanimously for his replacement. It's my honor to introduce our new Chief Technology Officer, Matt said. Someone who's given 24 years of dedicated service, who's built and maintained every critical system in this company, and who's mentored the next generation of IT professionals. Willie Livingston. The applause was genuine, warm. Willie saw his team in the front row. Isaac McGee, now a confident senior developer. Mohammed Driscoll, leading the security division. Simon Newell, managing infrastructure. All of them grinning. He saw Tamara Ward in the back row, clapping politely. She'd survived her probation, but never regained her former authority. The board had made sure she reported to Willie on all technology decisions. Willie gave a brief speech about infrastructure, reliability, and the importance of institutional knowledge. He talked about mentorship, about building teams that valued both innovation and experience. He didn't mention the crisis of 2 years ago. Didn't need to. Everyone remembered. After the meeting, Willie returned to his office, a larger space now, with a window overlooking the city. Claude Larson stopped by with coffee. CTO Livingston, the security guard said with a grin. Got a nice ring to it. Just means more meetings, Willie said, but he smiled. How's retirement planning coming? Another 3 years. Might stick around longer if they'll have me. They will, Willie said. Experience still matters here. After Claude left, Willie looked at the photo on his desk. Sarah, smiling at him from a beach vacation 10 years ago. He'd finally finished the Mustang. Took it for a drive every Sunday, same route they used to take together. His phone buzzed. Isaac McGee. Security question about the new cloud integration. Got a minute? Willie smiled and replied, Always. Come by the office. The system still hummed, the connection still blinked. But now Willie had backup, people he'd trained, people who understood that technology wasn't about being cutting edge or outdated. It was about building things that lasted, about reliability, about expertise earned through decades, not dismissed for youth. Tamara Ward had taught him that the hard way, and Willie Livingston had made sure she and Meridian would never forget that lesson. Outside his window, the sun set over the city. Willie finished his coffee and got back to work. Something's never changed, and that was exactly how it should be.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.